Seema, congratulations. This book was long overdue and we're happy that it's finally out. We can't wait to get to it. I'm going to ask you a few questions before I throw it open to the audience, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions coming your way from there as well. Question 1. We all know the Kama Sutra, and we know that your book transcends sensuality in ancient and modern times. One thing of intrigue that you told me when we chatted this Saturday was about Persian and Chinese sensuality, which was aggressive, you said, unlike Indian sensuality. What made you say that?
Okay, so it's interesting, but actually the ancient Persian, Chinese, Japanese erotica is quite aggressive. First of all, okay, so I don't know how many of you spent your misgotten youth reading erotica, but there is a very well-known book called Jinping Mei, which is a very well-known Chinese erotic book. Anyway, it's about this man who sort of sets off to have lots and lots of sex with lots and lots of women. Some is consensual, some is not. But the idea is that it's always fairly violent. You know, he drags them around by their hair, he stubs out his cigarette butts on them, and it's all supposed to be very exciting. Even when it's consensual, he does this, and it's supposed to be very, very exciting for the women. The Kama Sutra says, absolutely, it does not permit any kind of violence. And it's quite amazing in as much as it kind of goes through it, you know, at every point. He says, Vatsyayan says, if you're getting very, very excited, okay, you might want to lash out in your passion. You might want to get really violent and bite her in your passion. Stop now, don't go beyond this, because this one did this and he maimed his partner. This one did this and he killed his partner. Don't go beyond. And then he actually says to the women, he says, if your lover bites you too hard, and you think it's too hard, tell him to stop. And if he doesn't stop, bite him back twice as hard till he does. And I just think that's absolutely amazing. And I think that he kind of encapsulates it with one thing, which I really found amazing again. The Chinese, the Persians, the Japanese, for them, fidelity is all, so you have your wives, you have your mistresses, and your maids belong to you, so you can have sex with your maids. The Kama Sutra says, have sex with somebody who's your equal, because the moment you go to somebody who's below you, you treat them differently. I think that that's pretty amazing. I mean, a book written so long ago.
Absolutely, you're giving us newfound respect. We're going to junk our 50 Shades of Grey, which I'm sure some of us have read. You know what my problem with the Kama Sutra is? It seems more, I mean, I'm talking about the version with the visuals.
Okay.
It seems more acrobatic than sensual.
Okay, so I think that's probably been a little bit of excitement on the part of the people who've translated it. The positions were originally created. Vatsyayan says that the ideal couple is where the genitals come to match. Okay, so they're the same size. Because if the woman's too big and the man's too small, the man's too big, the woman's too small, I mean, it's not going to lead to great sex. So he says great sex. Ideally, a couple should come together, the genitals match. But I don't think it's very doable to kind of write to somebody and say, I'd like your daughter's hand in marriage, but what size is she? And so he says that the best way to deal with this is certain positions. So if the man's very small and the woman's very big, then the sideways position where the legs are together would then compress the yoni and so on. The only one position that I have to tell you, which has completely floored me, is where the man is lying flat on the bed, or wherever, flat on his back, and the woman sits on top of him, cross-legged, penetrates, and then goes round and round. I have absolutely no idea how that's done. Somebody said to me that in Thailand, the women actually attach themselves to a fan, and they go round and round, and I am completely, anyway, I have no idea. But I have to also say that at one point in the book, at one point in the book, Vatsyayan mentions someone saying, oh, but these positions are so difficult, it would be better if they were done in water. And then he goes on to say, but that's such a ridiculous suggestion because we are not allowed to have sex in water, because apparently having sex in water was punishable by 2 lifetimes in hell. Yeah, so, yeah, I don't know.
I've only heard of of husbands call their wives motor mouths sometimes. I didn't know motors had other uses. Seema, when do you reckon we stopped talking about sex as openly and as a society?
So I have to say that I think that this is the Christian influence, actually. Most people think that it's the Islamic invasions, but it isn't. If you think about it, in 325 AD, the Ecumenical Council of the Catholic Church sets up in the West. And they start off by saying sex is bad, the body is sinful, pleasure is bad, pleasure is bad, pleasure is bad. And this is something that actually went forward. Weirdly enough, it's the same time, 300 and something AD, when across the oceans, Vatsyayan is sitting on the river Ganges and actually writing the Kama Sutra and saying sex is brilliant, let's have more pleasure. And actually working towards understanding how to have more pleasure. But I think that it was probably the onset of Christianity that actually takes it away.
So we were the society that was broad-minded, that accepted sex as a far more beautiful act of human beings.
Yeah, from what I could see, the ancient Indians thought it was a poetic experience. It was fabulous. It is fabulous.
We are sure it is. So I'm trying to figure out how much I can ask and how much I can't. So please feel free to stop me, whoever is ready.
If there's anybody who's feeling really shy, now's the time to hug your neighbor.
Just make a little noise. Just give a little moan or something from the back. And I know I'm reaching my limits. Right? I want you to talk about oral sex.
Yes, actually, that's an interesting one to start with. So I was saying about the Ecumenical Council. Funnily enough, 342 AD, the Ecumenical Council passed their first law banning oral and anal sex. Because the idea is sex should only be for procreation. Oral and anal sex is purely for pleasure. Vatsyayan is writing about oral sex at the same time across the oceans. And he's not terribly pleased with it either, I have to say. Okay, it's the longest chapter in the Kama Sutra is his chapter on oral sex. But what he says is that people tend to do it wrong. Because he says that everybody, whenever people do oral sex, they always do it in the same way. And that means that the same set of nerves get stimulated each time, which means that those nerves will end up getting overstimulated and the other nerves will never get any stimulation at all and the balance will not be good. The imbalance is really unhealthy. So he says that if you're going to have oral sex, you've got to do it healthily. So he explains exactly how to have oral sex.
How?
Yeah, lots of one. There are 8 different types of kisses and he tells you one after the other what part you should stimulate with what. I hear a moan somewhere.
Aphrodisiacs, they play an important role in sex. They get talked about a lot. Less prudishly than oral sex. Tell us about the foods that fuel sex.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm going to break a few hearts now. Okay. There is no such thing as the ideal thing that you eat and it suddenly makes you like, wow, in bed. It doesn't. Are you ready for this, ladies and gentlemen? I'm sorry, I'm going to be busting a few myths, okay? So, the ideal aphrodisiac, so the problem with good sex was when the energy did not flow to the genitals properly. So the best aphrodisiacs were those that removed the blockages to those energies. And so the ultimately best aphrodisiac were foods that removed wind and bloating. And what happens is that this changes with age. So at the age of 20, what will remove your wind and bloating is not what will happen at 30 and so on. So basically you have to figure out what at your age will remove the bloating. Because let's face it, I mean, when you're bloated, the energy of the body can only go in one direction and can either get rid of that or so yeah.
Listen, this is such good fun for all of us, right? And we're going to just press you for more, but I need to ask you a personal question. These subjects are tough to write about as a woman who gets judged. You told me on Saturday that it was probably easier now that it would be tougher if you were 10 years younger. And if you were single, but it's a bit easier now. How do your friends react? How does your husband react? How do your children react?
Okay, so I think a lot of these are friends, and they've kind of gotten used to it. They've kind of gone from saying "pagal hai," you know, to saying, all right, maybe she's got a point over here. Yes, now that I have grey hair, and I am the wrong side of mid-50s, I'm now 56, so I can actually get away with saying things that I couldn't say earlier. So that's one good thing. In terms of how my family react, my husband, who would have liked to have been the typical Punjabi patriarch, has just had to change his identity, and he's come to terms with it. Now when he's asked, because everybody's like, Rahul, you are so lucky, and he's like, no, she only knows the theory, she doesn't know the I have to say, I'm very good. Says me. Anyway, my sons are 28 and 26. They're deathly embarrassed. They're very supportive, but they're deathly embarrassed. My daughter is 20. I've been working on this for the last 9 years. She's very, very supportive. She's kind of grown up with this. And she has the most functional attitude that I could hope for towards sex and sensuality. And all her, the kids have kind of grown up seeing the dining table piled up with different versions of the Kama Sutra, and they've just kind of got used to the fact that it exists. It's all right. It happens.
So, one of the most beautiful things you said is that this was not embarrassing on your dinner table. And I hope that we grow into families where, this is spoken about as a beautiful thing and not as something to be embarrassed.
And not just the books lying there, but underlined, highlighted.
Right. Pictures tagged.
Pictures tagged.
Okay, now, after the embarrassment, I'm going to put you in an embarrassing situation. Before I open the floor up to questions, I'm going to put in a few questions to you. A rapid fire.
I'm a little hard to
I would imagine so, but let me see how well you answer these. Quick questions to quick answers.